The photo was taken 3 weeks before I was born. I know that because it's dated. My aunt wrote it in the white border underneath, the way people used to. Blue ballpoint pen, her loopy handwriting, July 14th, 1989. The photo shows a birthday party in my grandmother's backyard, streamers, a lopsided cake. My mom at 19, laughing at something off camera. And me, standing in the background. Not a child version of me. Not some vague resemblance you could explain away after 2 glasses of wine. Me, my face, my haircut. The one I've had for the last 2 years. The undercut I got after my breakup because I needed something to change. My jaw, my nose, the slight asymmetry in my eyes where the left one sits maybe 2 millimeters lower than the right.
Go ahead and
I've had that checked.
Over. All right.
An optometrist pointed it out when I was 12, and I've been self-conscious about it ever since.
So that's what I'm going to do.
The person in the background of my mother's 19th birthday photo has that same asymmetry.
That's completely
He's looking
full.
directly at the camera.
And we'll just
I should clarify something before I go further. I am not a person who believes in this kind of thing. I don't watch ghost hunting shows unironically. I've never consulted a psychic.
Right, when we fill this
I once spent 45 minutes explaining to my college roommate why orbs and photos are just dust particles. I say this not to seem rational, but to give you a sense of how hard my brain has been working to find an exit from this. And why, 3 weeks later, I still haven't found one. I found the photo by accident. That's the part that keeps bothering me. I wasn't looking for anything. My name is Daniel Carr. I'm 29. I work in UX research for a mid-sized tech company, which means I spend most of my days watching people use software and figuring out where they get confused. It's less interesting than it sounds, and it already doesn't sound interesting. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in a city I moved to for a relationship that ended 14 months ago. I have a routine. I like my routine. Wake up, coffee, commute, work, gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, whatever I feel like the rest of the week. I call my mom on Sundays. She's the one who asked me to go through the boxes. My grandmother, her mother, passed in February. Nothing sudden. She was 81 and had been declining for a while. We weren't close in the way people are close when they actually talk, but I loved her in the abstract, familiar way you love someone who has always simply existed in your life. She smelled like lavender and kept hard candies in a dish on her coffee table, the kind nobody actually likes but everybody takes. When she died, that dish stayed in my brain for days. I don't know why. Mom was overwhelmed with arrangements and asked if I could drive up for a weekend to help sort through some of the storage. I said yes. I took the Friday off, made the 4-hour drive, and spent 2 days going through boxes while my mom alternated between crying and telling me stories about objects I didn't recognize. The boxes were mostly practical, old kitchenware, tax documents from the 1990s, a bread maker still in its original packaging, which I choose to believe was purchased with good intentions. Then, late on the Saturday afternoon, we found the photo albums. 6 of them, the old magnetic page kind that are apparently bad for photos. My mom kept saying that, like the knowledge was causing her personal distress. I was flipping through the 3rd album when I found it. Here's the thing about the moment itself. There was no dramatic feeling, no chill, no sudden certainty that something was wrong. I looked at the photo and I thought, confused but still calm, who is that? Because the face in the background was clearly familiar. It took me probably 10 full seconds, which is a long time to stare at something in silence, before I understood why it was familiar. I turned the album toward my mom. Who's this guy in the back? She looked, frowned. I don't know. Probably someone from the neighborhood. That was your grandmother's house on Fenwick Street. He looks like me, I said. She looked again, tilted her head. A little maybe. She turned the page. That was it. That was her reaction. And I told myself it was nothing. The way you tell yourself things are nothing when you're alone in your chest with the feeling that they aren't. I took a photo of the photo with my phone before I put the album away. That was my first mistake. Not because of anything mystical, but because once it was on my phone, I kept looking at it. And the more I looked, the more I found things I hadn't noticed the first time. The watch on his wrist, for example. I couldn't make it out clearly. The image quality was what you'd expect from 1989. But the strap looked dark, wide, a particular kind of rectangular face. I have a watch like that. I bought it 11 months ago from a small brand I found through an Instagram ad, the kind of micro label that's been around for maybe 4 years. I told myself watches look similar. I told myself lots of things. The other thing I noticed, and this one I've tried hardest to dismiss, was his posture. Both hands loose at his sides, weight slightly on the left foot. head turned maybe 15 degrees toward the camera. I have a specific way of standing when I don't know what to do with my body. My ex used to point it out, said I looked like I was waiting for instructions. The man in the 1989 photo was standing exactly like that. I did what any reasonable person does with something they can't explain. I made it worse. Over the following week, I went through every family photo I could access. I asked my mom to send me scans of anything she'd kept. She thought it was grief-related, this sudden interest in family history, and she was sweet about it. Sent me a Google Drive folder with about 200 images, organized in a way that suggested she'd been waiting for someone to ask. I found my face in 4 more photos. Not all of them are as stark as the first. 2 of them I could argue were coincidence. Similar features, similar build, nothing specific enough to be conclusive. But the other 2, the second one, a Christmas photo, 1995. My mom, my aunt, my grandmother, and my grandfather, who died before I was old enough to remember him. They're standing in front of a tree in what I now recognize as the Fenwick Street living room. Through the window behind them, slightly blurred, the way background details always are, there's a figure on the front porch. He's facing the window. His face is mostly shadow, but the jaw, the shape of the head, the way he's standing. I'm 6 years old in 1995. The 5th photo is the one that ended my ability to sleep properly. It was taken at my parents' wedding in 1987. I've seen their wedding photos before. They had a proper album, the kind with tissue paper between pages. But my mom's Google Drive folder had ones I'd never seen, candid shots taken by guests. In one of them, in the parking lot of the reception venue, there's a man walking away from the camera, dark jacket, a particular posture. I wouldn't have even registered it except for what he's carrying, a phone, not pressed to his ear, held at his side, face up, the way people hold phones now, flat and rectangular, in 1987. I stared at that image for a long time. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I zoomed in until the pixels broke apart and became abstract, then kept zooming, trying to will resolution into existence through sheer desperation. I couldn't make out the device clearly. It could have been a beeper. It could have been a wallet. It could have been 100 things. I told myself that. I nearly believed it. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, and this is the part I've gone back and forth about, including, because it sounds like the moment a story jumps the rails into something you don't believe. I was at the gym. Standard Thursday routine, nothing unusual. I finished my workout, went to the locker room, and checked my phone before showering. I had a new photo in my camera roll. I don't mean a photo I'd forgotten about. I mean a photo that had not been there when I checked my phone 2 hours earlier. I know this because I had been looking at the 1989 image again on the treadmill. I'd been doing that a lot, the obsessive returning, and my camera roll had been open. I had scrolled through it. The last photo was a screenshot I'd taken of a restaurant menu. Now there was a photo after the screenshot. It was of a gym locker room. Not necessarily my gym, but a locker room. The same gray-green industrial color, the same fluorescent quality to the light. Taken from the doorway, the angle slightly high, as if the photographer was taller or had their arm raised. In the middle of the frame, facing away from the camera, was a man in a gray shirt. I was wearing a gray shirt. I want to be careful here. I want to be very precise. I cannot confirm that the man in the photo is me. I cannot confirm it isn't. His build matches mine. His shirt matches mine. His gray New Balance shoes match the ones I'd left in front of locker 12, but his face isn't visible. I checked my phone settings immediately. No shared albums. No cloud sync I didn't set up. No app with camera permissions I didn't recognize. I checked 3 times. I'm in UX research. Understanding how apps behave is literally my job. I could not explain how a photo appeared on my phone that I did not take. The timestamp on the photo said it had been taken that day at 4:47 p.m. At 4:47 p.m., I had been on the leg press machine, which is in a completely different part of the gym. Here's the thing I've told no one until right now. I went back to the locker room doorway and looked at the angle. To get that shot, you'd have to stand right at the entrance, arm slightly raised, phone horizontal. There's a mirror directly opposite the doorway. If someone had been standing there with their phone raised, I would have seen them when I walked in. The mirror had shown me only an empty doorway. I took 2 days off work. I told my manager I had a personal situation, which was technically accurate in the same way that I have a concern is technically accurate when your house is on fire. I spent those 2 days going through everything methodically. Not because I thought I'd find a rational answer. By that point, I think some part of me had already quietly accepted that a rational answer might not be available. But because the alternative was just sitting with it, and I couldn't do that, doing something felt better than doing nothing, even if the something was increasingly useless. Here's what I found, and I need you to follow this carefully, because this is where it stops being a weird coincidence and starts being something I don't have a name for. I reverse image searched the 1989 photo. This was actually my mom's idea. She'd become more invested once I sent her the photos with annotations, my neat UX researcher's circles and arrows. And I hadn't tried it because I assumed it wouldn't return anything. Old printed photos, even digitized, usually don't resolve against modern images. It returned one result. The result was a photo from a Reddit post. The post was in a now archived subreddit called r/myfamilyfoundthis, which was a community where people posted strange or unexplained things they discovered in family archives. The post was made in 2019. The title was, "Found this in my grandfather's wartime photos. Don't know this man. Anyone recognize him?" The photo was different from mine. Different family. Different setting. The background suggested somewhere rural and northern. A farmhouse. Woodpile. Heavy coats. The date on the post was unclear, and there was no handwritten border to date the image itself. But the face in the background of that photo was the same face as in mine. The same asymmetry. The same jaw. My face. The comments on the post were mostly useless. People suggesting it was a family resemblance, a trick of the image quality, pareidolia. The original poster had responded to a few, then apparently given up. The account had been inactive since 2019. I made an account and messaged them anyway. They responded in 11 minutes. I found out later they had post notifications set for that thread. They'd been waiting 4 years for someone to reach out. Their name is Clara. We've been talking every day since. She has 7 photos spanning from what appears to be the 1940s through the mid-1990s. In each one in the background is the same figure, the same face, my face. She'd been trying to identify it for years. She had no connection to my family. Her family is from a completely different part of the country, different background, no overlap I can find. We've compared everything. She's also methodical. She works in archival research. And I sometimes think this is either an enormous coincidence or the universe has a sense of casting. 2 days ago, she sent me something she'd found after we started talking. She'd gone back through her family's collection with new focus, and in a box she hadn't fully sorted, she found a letter, old paper, typed, which she dates around the 1970s based on the typeface and paper quality. It was tucked inside a photo envelope, apparently loose, like it had been meant to accompany something. She photographed the letter and sent it to me. I need to quote it directly, so I've copied it word for word. If you are reading this, then you found one of the photographs. Please understand, he cannot help being there. He does not know where, or when, or why. He only knows he appears. If you know who he is, and I believe, if you are reading this, that you might, please do not tell him. It would be worse if he knew. Some things, once understood, cannot be undone. Leave the photographs where you found them. Do not look for more. The letter has no signature, no indication of who wrote it or who it was meant for. I did not leave the photographs where I found them. And now I'm wondering, when was that letter written? Because here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. The letter says, if you know who he is, present tense, not who he was. It was written for someone who would recognize the face as a living person. It was written for me. Except I wasn't born until 1989, and the paper dates to the 1970s.